Hey, happy Monday. Welcome to Jets Talk Now. Please like and subscribe. Thanks, guys, for joining after yet another embarrassing loss by the New York Jets to into hands of the New Orleans Saints, 29-6. We did the recap yesterday. No need to do that again. I wanted to do today what I thought would be helpful for us fans who've been so loyal to this team for so many years. I'm a lifelong, passionate Jet fan who has consistently been willing to have faith and hope, even in the darkest moments, that this team would be improving and getting better. The last time the Jets were any good, I was living in California. I had moved to California from New York. I was living in California. I had one kid, one daughter, and I was in my mid 30s. And now I'm in my 50s. I have three children, one of whom will be beginning college next year. And the Jets, if you're just being honest, they're as bad or worse than they've ever been. They're on their way to a 3-14 season. Our fan base has never been more fractured, I think, and maybe that's just the reality of having social media. But it seems to me, at least, that whether you're a pro tanker or you're an anti tanker, many are just upset just to be upset at this point. And so what I thought might be something a little different would be to just come on here today and let's talk about the state of the team. Is there some reason to have hope moving forward, and what would that be? My initial perspective right now, and this is just how I feel based on every report. Aaron Glenn's getting a second year, so if we're talking about a therapy session today, if you are anti-Glenn, get over it this year. You're going to have to live with a second season. Whether you think he's deserving of that or not is almost irrelevant. We're a fan. I guess you can choose not to watch. I guess you can choose for them to fail so you can get them fired next year. I mean, I don't know. Like, that would be, I think that's counterproductive to being a fan. I think the best fans are the ones that are willing to acknowledge when they're wrong about something. And so, like, here's how I look at it. Let's say you're anti-Glenn and you think he's terrible. You wish he never gotten hired. You're screaming from the mountaintop that he should be fired after year one. They keep him. They do a lot of good things in the off season, and all of a sudden they start to win. Are you just going to be upset because you were wrong about Aaron Glenn and he turned out to be a good head coach? Or are you just going to say, you know what, I was wrong. He turned out to be a good head coach. I mean, it's not unprecedented that guys become good head coaches over time. Was I a Glenn backer in the beginning of the season before they hired him? No, I wanted Mike McCarthy. I wanted Mike Vrabel. I would have taken Brian Flores over him. Preferably I wanted an offensive-minded head coach. But once they hired him, And to me, a new regime comes in, and unless it's a complete disaster, they usually get 3 years, or at least 2. And so that's kind of my mindset. Do I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame head coach? No, but I think that the track record for the Jets is so bad that I don't know who would be a Hall of Fame head coach. I want him to get an opportunity to be successful. So I'm pro tank. I don't care the score of the games. Like, everyone's getting upset. Like, if you're a pro tanker, but they're getting killed, like, that's some indictment on Aaron Glenn right now as a head coach, as opposed to losing by 3 points and being competitive. Like, guys, they're starting Brady Cook as he's an undrafted free agent rookie for a reason. Garrett Wilson was properly shut down. Their number one wide receiver is A.D. Mitchell, who couldn't even, touch the field for Indy. the defenses are stacking the box and blitzing like crazy. Cook doesn't know what's going on back there, just taking sack after sack, turning the ball over. Breece Hall has no running room. This is not real football right now. So like, I'm not sitting here. I was getting mad in the beginning of the season with Aaron Glenn because he came in with this bravado that they were going to be a good football team and that we're going to win now and just watch us. And then he made some bad decisions. He was fighting with the media, blah, 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 blah. But the minute they traded Sauce and Q and we knew Fields sucked, I knew what this was. This was a team that needed to just completely tear it down. And so I pivoted quickly from, hey, maybe they can win 7 or 8 games and be plucky to go and win 17. I don't care. And, they won the one game that really might bite them in the butt, which is the Atlanta game that, and really, I don't know if they won that as much as Atlanta lost it, that may keep them from getting to the number 1 slot. But, I think no matter how you feel today, if you're a tanker, you're feeling good because they've lost a bunch of games. Forget about Aaron Glenn. Don't even just like literally compartmentalize the Aaron Glenn issue that you have. Forget about it. It's done. He's here. Okay. If you are anti-tank and you feel like winning now helps Aaron Glenn, it helps him build his program, it helps the culture. I want to appeal to your common sense. I know this from this perspective. Like I've in my other life as not a non-Jet fan, I've run many companies and businesses. And my most successful company that I worked at, they brought me in and I very quickly realized, after evaluating that I was going to have to replace 75% of the staff because they just weren't buying into what we wanted them to do and they weren't ever going to be successful. My first year was nothing but turnover and challenges and difficulty. But by year 2, we were rebuilding, we were getting wins, we were getting more and more successful. And then we wound up with what was a 14-year run of the most successful company in the industry that I was in. But it started with tearing down the foundation and then bringing in people who could help me build my culture. Winning a game in late December is doing nothing for your culture right now. Aaron Glenn's going to be here next year. What Aaron Glenn does in the offseason with his coaching staff, what Darren Muji does with this roster and in talent evaluation, in free agency and the draft, what they do at quarterback, those are going to determine whether Aaron Glenn is successful or not. But losing today gives him more of a chance of success in the future than winning a game or 2 in the last 2 weeks. In fact, if he wins a game or 2 in the last 2 weeks and they finish at 7 or 8 in the draft, I would argue whether you want them to draft a quarterback or not, you're hurting the ability to build this roster. You just are. But if they finish in the top 3, you could probably feel really good that they're not going to have to give up much in the way of draft capital to potentially get their quarterback unless Cleveland finishes 1 or the Raiders finish 1. And I actually don't think that's going to happen because right now, I think there's truly a path to 1 or 2, right? And again, if we're talking about a therapy session right now, deep breath. 3 weeks ago, we were seeing crazy trades. Jets were sitting at 7 or 8. I saw mock drafts. Jets are going to trade their first this year, their second first this year, and 1 or 2 firsts next year to go to number 1. And all over X, people were flipping out. They were losing their minds, rightfully so. Because even though I'm pro drafting a quarterback, I'm not pro draft a quarterback no matter what. I am, if you love a quarterback and the cost is reasonable, go get your quarterback. But I was like, hey, doing mock drafts now are meaningless because we don't know where they're going to finish. And if you look at where they are today, because they've been losing consistently, and as much of you could as much as you could potentially say this is a pro tank timeline for the Jets, it's a pro tank timeline. The Jets are sitting in a place where they could very, very realistically be in the first or second slot in the draft. I've seen a lot of people talking about what's the Jets' percentage chance of becoming the number one draft pick. People are like it's 5%, it's 6%. It's actually higher than that, right? If we just assume the Jets lose the last two games, and I think that you have to assume that because there's no path to the number one pick without that. They come in really with a 16% chance to get to the number one draft pick. Then you go 16% sucks. I hear you. But like, let's just play this out real quick. And so I went on to the Athletics New York Times page, which is awesome from a simulator because it shows you like the games that have big impact in green, and, dark shades, I should say. Here's the big thing next week. The Ravens are on the road against the Pack. If the Packers win that game, okay, it doesn't have a massive impact to the Jets' chances, but it does indirectly because the Ravens would officially be eliminated from the division, which would mean that the Steelers going into Cleveland have absolutely nothing to play for. You need the Browns to win a game. They have to win one game. And it's either going to be a game against the Steelers at home or on the road against Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati's the worst team, but they're on the road. I don't trust it. Cincinnati just demolished Miami on the road. I think the Browns at home, cold weather game against an unmotivated Steelers team who have now just clinched the division because that game, the Ravens game is Saturday. That's the best chance for the Browns to win. Now, if the Browns win that game, all of a sudden the Jets' chance is more than double. They get to 36% chance, right? Then what other big games do we have? Well, we have the Giants and Raiders. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people, including myself, have said, well, go Raiders. And the reason why we're saying go Raiders is because if the Raiders win that game, the Jets will leapfrog the Raiders and at least be ahead of them, who's in their QB needy team. But there's some context here. If the Giants were to win this game, Jets' chances go up, right? The Raiders would have to then win week 18. See, if the Raiders go and win week 18, they're home against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have got their third string quarterback. All of a sudden, the Jets have better than 50% chance of getting the number one pick. And really what would solidify that for them is, where are we? The Browns, the Giants. I'm missing something. What am I missing? Oh, if the Titans win the home game and the Eagles beat the Bills, the Jets are essentially locked in at number one. But if we just look at this, and go, okay, well, what if let's just remove the final week of the season here. Sorry, I don't want to be confusing to you, but let's say the Packers win. So I feel good about that. Patriots beat the Jets. Let's take this game out of the equation for a minute. The Browns beat the Steelers. If the Raiders beat the Giants, your chance at number one goes down. Okay. But look at this. If the Giants beat the Cowboys, it explodes. So really what we're looking at here, guys, is not unreasonable. Jets lose out. Raiders win one of two games, either the Giant game at home or at home against the third string quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. We need the Browns to win a game, and I think that game could be this coming weekend. And you need the Giants to win a game. If those things happen, the Jets have a high percentage possibility of getting the number one pick. Now, strength of schedule will play into it, which is, I think, one of the reasons why you want the Eagles to beat the Bills, because it has an impact. But, these standings still have a lot of movement to be done. And really, at the end of the day, you want the Jets to finish either 2 or 1. Because if they finish, let's just say the Giants finish with the number 1 pick, the Jets are 2. What do you think it's going to cost the Jets to go from 2 to 1? There'll be a pick swap and maybe a second rounder next year. It's not going to be massive. So the Jets will have a ton of draft capital, because look at what the Jets have this year in the draft. 4, 18, 35, 45 right now. I mean, that Dallas pick just keeps getting better, right? It's a real path here to actually improving your football team. And then 2027 is even better than this. So, when we were talking 2-3 weeks ago about moving up for a quarterback, it was with the idea that the Jets would have to give up a whole bunch of capital to do that. I think they're going to finish at worst third, and likely second with a couple of breaks. They could potentially get to the number 1 pick. And so why is that relevant? Well, because I think Darren Muji has shown promise this year. I don't hold him responsible as much as some fans do, or as Aaron Glenn for Justin Fields, because the Jets took a lottery pick swing on Justin Fields and it didn't work out. I'm not mad about that. He was a was he 26-year-old guy with tons of physical ability. They thought they could potentially develop him. The reality is they couldn't. All it's going to do is cost you some money, but it's Woody's money. Do we really care? It doesn't impede them in free agency this year and improving the roster. They'll have $100 million to spend. It doesn't impede them from getting a quarterback in free agency or in the draft. They'll cut him. It'll cost them a $10 million cap hit. I don't care. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think the draft, so Mougeys' offseason acquisitions weren't good, right? Brandon Stevens, they overpaid, and he's an average corner. He had a couple of weeks where he looked pretty good, and I think he's regressed. Cisco stinks and is hurt. Wide receivers, terrible. So like the free agent signings, no impact. The draft, I would give him a B for the draft. And what I think a lot of people don't realize when it comes to the draft is a first-year GM is using a lot of the infrastructure and scouts from the previous regime. So a lot of the talent evaluation came from that group. So, I wanted them to draft a quarterback last year because I thought they needed to bring a young quarterback on the roster. They chose not to. It might have been as simple as, Mougie didn't trust, without having his own team in place, an evaluation on a QB in year 1 of his regime. So he made some trades during the season that I thought were pretty shrewd, and he got great draft capital in return. I think he picked up players for cheap draft picks that are impact players with Briggs and Phillips. I think A.D. Mitchell's showing that he could potentially be a part of the future, either as wide receiver 3 or 4. And if you look at the draft, I mean, you got your future right tackle secured. I think Mason Taylor has shown promise. He's still only a young guy. He's 21 years old. A.Z. Thomas was showing promise until he got hurt. Malachi Moore, I think, you got 4 guys there that one of whom can be a Pro Bowler. I think that's a good first draft. So I feel good about Mougie going into this draft. I do. I feel like he's someone that we can believe he's going to be a good evaluator of talent. And that leads me to why I think the Jets should be going for a quarterback. Unless, listen, if Mougeys looked at this and said, I don't see a QB1 that I want to bet on for the future, and I think another path is to go trade for somebody, then that's his decision. He punts to 27. He's going to have to live with that decision. Whether it's a good one or not, we'll find out. But, you know, I think when you look at 2026 and you think about what the reasonable expectations are, here's what I would do. Here's the path to me. I think when the season ends, there needs to be a full assessment on the coaching staff. I don't think anyone has, aside from Banjo, stood out that would make you say they're a future, they're a star coach that we need to make sure is locked down. Tanner Engstrand has got an incomplete for me. He's got a terrible quarterback situation. I think he gets a second season. But in my mind, I need Tanner Engstrand, AG, and Mougie to agree who is the quarterback that I'm going to bank on to run my offense. And I'm going to go and do everything I can to get that quarterback. In the draft this year, I think the Jets should be going QB, wide receiver 2, edge, and linebacker. Those are my 4 positions that I am targeting. Ideally, I'm getting a QB1 at the top of the draft. If I'm not, I'm drafting a QB later who I can develop. But I think that those are the 4 biggest positions of need you go after in the draft. In free agency, safety help is desperately needed. Linebacker help is desperately needed. You have tons of cap room to do it. You probably need to pick up another veteran wide receiver or so, and you need a backup quarterback. That sets you up so that 2027 can be a year with a ton of draft capital where you finish up your roster. It also means that you could have higher expectations for 2026 to be not a 3-win season, but I also don't think it should be an expectation that this is a playoff roster. I think the Jets need to bring in a defensive coordinator who's either been experienced and done the job like a Wink Martindale or even a Jim Schwartz if he gets fired. Or you bring in someone like a Jim Leonard or someone from the Chicago staff because they've made such an improvement as well. But I don't want somebody from the Detroit staff. Detroit's bad this year. Defensively, they've gone worse. They're not going to make the playoffs. I don't want just a friend of Glenn. Bring somebody in here who's going to teach this team how to take the ball away. Get the roster to a place where the defense can be in the top 20 and not the bottom 5. Get me a young rookie quarterback that shows promise. Get a wide receiver 2 to help Garrett. Sign Breece Hall to an extension so you have a safety valve for the rookie quarterback. And yes, Breece hasn't been good the last few weeks, but he's playing with an undrafted rookie quarterback who's facing a stack box, who can't throw the ball downfield, who can't read a defense and has no pocket presence. So I know we got some Brady Cook fans here. He's a practice squad quarterback and nothing more. Maybe he develops into a QB2 next, in the future. I don't know, but he's definitely not a QB1. But I think reasonably, if the Jets do all those things, that could get them to maybe a 7 or 8 win season. And if not, if they do all those things and they win 4 or 5 games, well, guess what? When all else fails, you start over again. Because I could tell you right now, if the Jets don't draft a quarterback and they go the way of a bridge like they did this year and they win 4 games next year or 5 games next year, this regime and Aaron Glenn will likely not get the opportunity to draft their quarterback. And if you get the head coaching job and the GM job and you get 2 seasons and never once take a swing at your quarterback and lose your job, well, that's on you. That's on you. You failed to pull the trigger. The owner decided, I'm not going to let these guys take a 3rd year. I'm going to use my draft capital and the ability to go draft your quarterback as an alluring thing to go get my new head coach and GM. That's what's going to happen. So you can disagree with that. You can feel the way you feel emotionally. You can believe that the Jets should punt to 27 on a quarterback. They better hope to God that if they punt on a quarterback, they get someone who can at least get them to respectability next year. Otherwise, I don't think Glenn gets the opportunity to draft a quarterback. So there's everything in a nutshell. I think the Jets are a team that desperately needs a path forward that fans can buy into. I think a rookie quarterback will help that. I think some improvement in defense with a good defensive coordinator will help that. I think Glenn growing as a coach will help that. But at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to, can they win football games? Can they win enough football games to show any promise that they deserve a third season? I do not believe the Jets need to make the playoffs next year. I personally don't believe that I need them to make the playoffs for me to have optimism next year. Get to 7 wins, show measurable improvement, get me a quarterback that I believe in and has a future, and then we can see from there. But if we go into next season with a similar situation to this year, then Glenn won't make it to a third. So that's our therapy session today. If you're a tanker, you should feel good right now. The team has a path to getting to number 1 and number 2. If you're an anti-tanker and you're rooting for Glenn, you should still feel good because he's going to have the resources to have a better roster next year. And you know what? We have just 2 more weeks of misery to get through, but we've got Christmas and New Year's, time with family to help distract us from probably some of the worst football many of you have ever watched. Unfortunately for me, I have watched the Rich Kotite years, and that's probably right up there. And if not, Rich Kotite was the worst head coach I've ever seen as a Jet fan. So, yes, I think things have gone poorly this year. Yes, there's a lot of darkness in front of us, but I do think that as fans, we should feel at least marginally optimistic that they have the capital and the assets to improve this team. And if Aaron Glenn can become a good head coach, and the jury is out, there is an opportunity for this franchise to turn around. And maybe one day we get to see a Super Bowl. I don't know. I just take a playoff. I'll take a playoff appearance at some point. You guys have a great one. I'll talk to you soon.